Hi everyone and welcome back to my channel. For those of you who are new here, I am Sam and I make videos about autism and neurodiversity every week here on YouTube. Today I'm going to be doing a Q&A because I haven't done one for a while, and it's always kind of fun to answer people's questions and talk about different things that maybe I wouldn't have thought about to talk about. So let's get started. The first question is, how do I cope with appointments, for example, doctors, hairdressers, etc.? Well, this is very timely because I have just had a doctor's appointment that was not a GP's, it was a little bit more intrusive than that, let's just say. I think the thing that I know now is that I need to give myself time after a doctor's appointment to decompress and to get over the sensory overload, especially if it's in a hospital or if there are a lot of bright lights and all that kind of stuff. And I know now that I need to give myself that time because I have had a lot of, I don't want to say, well, I suppose chronic illness is maybe the right word for it, but with chronic illness, you know, you spend a lot of your time not being believed by doctors, and so I've had a lot of bad doctors, and I just find the whole situation of going to the doctor pretty unpleasant in general. So for example, a couple of weeks ago when I was at the doctor's, it was actually a really good experience. She was a really great doctor, but I basically just had this massive sensory overload when I was done. So I was sort of driving, and I was like actually trying to hold back tears while I was driving, even though the whole appointment had gone well. And then I got home and I basically just crashed. My husband was looking after my child and I'm like, I have to go lie down after this. So that is really my best tip, is build in recovery time if possible. So things like the hairdresser. My hairdresser actually has ADHD, which really helps a lot in sort of connecting. I've never minded going to the hairdresser. I actually really like the pressure on my scalp and stuff like this, so I don't really need to cope with that, but I have definitely been very anxious before about them not communicating very well with me, so find a neurodivergent hairdresser if you can. Or also I would really recommend earplugs, because it never occurred to me, but of course blow drying your hair is really noisy, and if somebody else is in control of that noise, that's a bit annoying. So for the hairdresser specifically, I would say earplugs and stuff like that. So I was just talking about how I was sort of fighting back tears on the way back from that doctor's appointment, and this question actually asks, have you ever had a minor meltdown while driving, and how did you reset? I've been driving for a few years now. I didn't get my license until 2017. Well, yeah, I've never had a full-blown meltdown while driving, I don't think, but I do get worked up about things, and I think the way to react is basically just knowing your triggers and having strategies to compensate. So for me, I get really worked up when somebody's like rude to me on the road, and I take it very personally, and it's difficult to change how you react to it, but at least knowing that, okay, well, I get really worked up about rude people, that's a start, isn't it, to try and work this out. But I've never been in a position where I felt like it was dangerously stuff. It's just sometimes holding back the tears. Right, so next question, how much of an influence does music play in your life? So I've always been musical in the sense, like I did music at school. I actually played the flute, and then I taught myself the guitar. I still play the guitar a little bit, but I just got out of practice, and I got out of the habit. When I was a teenager, music was very important to me, and I think that's true for a lot of teenagers, not just autistic people. Right, somebody says, are you getting professional support? What kind? The support I get in the Netherlands is a sort of practical support for everyday life, which I get about 2 hours a week, which is great. And I'm finally off the waiting list for professional psychological support, but it's not really like therapy, it's like psychoeducation modules. So it's basically a bit of education about autism, but also how that relates to you personally. So sort of like putting together the pieces, I hate talking about puzzle pieces, but you know, putting together the pieces of your life in light of this new diagnosis. And it's been really interesting, actually. We've had some interesting discussions about ADHD, which I think that's going to be another video. What is your favorite food? I like a lot of food, and it's kind of ironic because when I was growing up, I had a really limited diet. I just could not eat a lot of things sensory-wise, taste-wise. I was extremely fussy, and I got to about age 18, 19, something like that. And then I just started trying food, and now, if my body would let me, I would eat anything. There are some things I don't like as much, but I would eat anything. But, okay, so what was the question? What is your favorite food? I really like pizza, I really like sushi, I really like fried chicken, I really like a lot of things actually. Yeah, I don't have a favourite food. I used to be a big sugar eater. I was a sugar monster and now I don't eat sugar at all. But I still like the foods, I just use sweetness. So no, I have actually quite a broad palate, but... Storm's joining us now. But I don't eat a lot of food, but that's for health reasons anyway, so... Sorry, I didn't answer that one very well. I like food, I really do. You might not think it though, because I have to eat gluten-free for celiac disease and I have to eat keto for PCOS and like hormonal management, so it seems like I'm fussier than perhaps I am now. What kind of sounds, not musical, do you really like? This is like an ASMR question, almost. What kind of sounds do I really like? Okay, I can answer this differently. The sounds that I really hate are chewing. I have what's called misophonia, misophonia, I think that's how you say it, which is basically like a massive aversion to food noises, like chewy food noises. Even my own chewing, sometimes if I'm wearing earplugs in a restaurant or for dinner or something like that, and the sound of my own chewing is really rather unpleasant, so I have to take them out. So that's what sound I don't like. And you know, those sounds basically are the worst. The sounds that I do like, cats purring. I'll press my ear against my cat's belly a lot. That's really nice. I like, what are they called? Those, you know, on white noise apps, they have like the Tibetan bowls and things like that. I like really clear bell-like noises, but not church bells. I hate church bells. And I used to play the flute, and I think that was because I really liked the sound of the flute. And I was thinking about, I went through a super micro obsessive interest phase where I wanted to learn the viola, specifically the electric viola, and I realised that I might struggle with it because of hypermobility, but I was listening to it, I was figuring out whether maybe I should go for a cello, viola, violin, and I listened to the violin, I'm like, I cannot even listen to it when it's being played nicely. Electric violin maybe, but I cannot listen to a violin. But a viola, that's a much deeper, more mellow sound, and a cello is again, but obviously those things are big and expensive and stuff, so yeah, it's interesting how my musical tastes are kind of informed by my tolerance to certain tones and maybe timbres of music. Did I answer the question? I guess I did. Cats purring. I like cats purring. I also really like, they're not exactly ASMR videos, but there is a channel on YouTube called Peaceful Cuisine. It's there's often no music. It's basically the sounds of food preparation. And I really like the sounds of like, I don't know, chopping wood and I don't know, workmanship, workwomanship, those kind of sounds. Natural, good, earthy, woody sounds. Crunching stones would be good. That was a good question, actually. I liked it. Right, next question. How do you like to use emojis if you use them? I rely on them too much, I think. Someone also asked me a question about GIFs and whether I use those. I use emojis a normal amount. I feel sometimes like I maybe use them in a slightly inappropriate amount for the age. I feel like other people in their 30s don't use them as much, but meh. I would love to communicate entirely in GIFs. I could have a whole conversation with somebody in animated GIFs and it would just be like absolutely fine by me. For me, that communicates way more of my feeling and emotion than just using the words, which is very interesting actually. It's like this is the tone and this is the expression that I'm trying to give you, but I don't have to physically act it out with my face or my voice when we're on the phone face to face. So it's kind of like, for me, using GIFs is like voice chatting. Oh my gosh. Next question. Now this is a really great question. Why are some highly sensitive people not autistic and why are some autistic? I actually believe that most people who consider themselves HSPs, highly sensitive person, are probably autistic, because I considered myself a highly sensitive person at some point. I was like, this fits me exactly. And you know, it's one thing thinking, oh, it's the sensory stuff, but then they go into it and they're like, oh, you're very sensitive to other people's criticisms and other people's, and so there's a huge social aspect to it. And by the time you actually look at it, the criteria for being an HSP and the criteria for being autistic is pretty much the same. So I think that the reason that people are happy to call themselves an HSP is because it's like, it's not a negative, it doesn't have a negative connotation. Autism has a very negative connotation and stigma attached to it. And so it's much better to you can just self-identify as an HSP and people won't go, oh, well, who diagnosed you? You know, like people will say, oh, well, you were telling me about yourself. That's interesting. I will do a whole video on HSPs because it's on my list. And the last question, which I get asked a lot actually, is dating advice for autistic people. And I really love that you think that I have any advice for you. I guess I'm married. But I have terrible advice. I had a terrible time of dating, and to be honest, I'm just really lucky that I happened to find my husband in my early 20s and just didn't have to do it anymore. I hated dating. It was awful. It was so anxiety provoking. I didn't understand the rules. I didn't understand anything. So no, I don't have dating advice. However, I will give you the advice that I wish I would have known back then with, you know, 10 plus years of hindsight. And that is, you need to be yourself, because you don't want somebody to like the person that you're pretending to be, because then you have to keep pretending for your whole life. You really, really need to be yourself, and you need to be yourself from the beginning up front. Otherwise it's just a waste of time and you're gonna go on some terrible dates or end up in terrible, well, relationships. I didn't really have any proper relationships until I met my husband. Like, I kind of dated people and stuff, but like I didn't call anyone my boyfriend until I met my now husband. It's really difficult, and I think that dating culture these days does not help at all. It doesn't help because it's too throwaway. It doesn't give an autistic person any time to get to know you. You know, somebody's already chucked you in the bin in their mind before you've even said hello, just because you didn't, I don't know, stand up straight. It's really hard to date as an autistic person, I think. I guess the main advice would be to find other neurodivergent people. I am sure that there are apps and websites for it. I don't know of any. I can't recommend any because obviously I haven't tried any. I would probably say that for autistic people, just stay away from things like Tinder, because unless you're looking for casual sex, you know, that's fair enough. But if you're looking for anything else, I just think that that's probably a really bad idea. But I think it's probably a bad idea for many people. If you have any further questions, please let me know in the comments below. And if they're good ones, I will include them in my next Q&A, which will be at some point in the future. You've got to stay watching in order to find out if I answer your question. There's a hook, isn't there? All right, I hope you enjoyed this little casual Q&A, and I will see you next time. Bye.